Hot Mic with Dom Izzo.
Really? Really, Dom?
No. I like what Dom's doing.
Okay.
Dom Izzo.
Jeez, come on, Dom. What do you think I am, a magician?
Yeah, I'm fired up, Dom. What else could I say?
Absolutely. It was great to get on the field, and then Dom came up to me, and I'm trying to walk away from me. I just wanted to enjoy myself out there.
Hot Mic.
Great job.
There's got to be some kind of intelligent question about something. Is a
Hot Mic. Hot Mic. On the networks of WDAY.
You know, if it's not about sports, I find it very hard to concentrate.
Here's Dom Izzo. Dom Izzo.
Good Thursday morning. It's Giving Hearts Day. And welcome to Hot Mic here on this 9th of February, 2023. Steamrolling towards the weekend. Evidently, Super Bowl Sunday is right around the corner. You wouldn't know it, considering the NBA has decided to hijack this whole week. With the trade deadline coming today at about, 3 o'clock Central Time, I have a feeling we're not done on discussing what's happening in the National Basketball Association. Welcome to our show, everybody. Dom Izzo here. Great to be with everyone on this Thursday. There's not a shortage of things. Zach Hoffner, one of our photographers upstairs, told me, well, you don't have a shortage of things to chat about today. We rarely do, but certainly today is one of them. And I know for some of our viewers, listeners, they are sick of this topic. As I said yesterday, I'm sorry, but it's not going anywhere. It's a major story in the sport in the state of North Dakota. Yesterday, in case you missed it, you must be living under a rock. Right after we wrapped up our show, the North Dakota High School Activities Association Executive Board voted to accept the revised three-class basketball plan and implement it for the 2023-24 season. So next year, we will have 3 classes of basketball in the state. For the first time in 60-some-odd years, we're going to 3 classes again. The ripples of this are wide. Not enough time for us to discuss all of them today. I think today is important to establish what it means, and I think in the coming days and weeks to discuss how this is going to get done and how that will affect things. And most notably, as we get ready for the tournament run to begin, and my friend and colleague Jody Norstead brought this up on Twitter yesterday, that this is the last iterations of what we are going to have of these tournaments. The girls' Class B in Minot in a few weeks, in the first weekend of March, and the boys' Class B in Bismarck will be the final iterations of this that we will have for the foreseeable future. And I've got some stats that will back up with this. I don't want to get too into it now because I've got a whole segment, and we've got a couple segments dedicated towards it throughout the show this morning. But too often, you have been able to rubber stamp who was going to go to the Class B tournament before the year even began. And then I thought it was more anecdotal than anything, and then I went back and did the research last night, and it actually bore that out to be true. There's a couple of regions over the 10 years now we've been doing the state basketball tournaments. There are 2 regions over that time span. There have only been 3 schools to win it in a 10-year time frame. 3. That's not... you can say the word fair, and I know people will answer, well, get better. Okay, but when there's inherent advantages to that, then I can understand why maybe breaking this up is a good idea. I'm going to hold off on just a second because we got some other news we got to talk about off the top of the show that is rather large, starting with the Timberwolves, who again demand our attention not only for what's happening on the court, but off the court. Last night, playing the Jazz in Utah, less than 24 hours after the beatdown in Denver. And granted, Utah is not nearly the team that the Jazz are. or the Nuggets are, excuse me, and the Wolves played like it last night. They came out, ran the floor well. Anytime you get a Josh Minot in the highlight reel, you got to show it with the Thunder Slam there. Ant going crazy, driving to the basket and dunking. I wouldn't get in his way. He scored 31 last night. Jalen Noel was tremendous as well in the backcourt because the Wolves made a rather large move, which I'm sure many of you know. Taurean Prince with a nifty move to the basket. Remember, the Jazz had an unreal start to the season, and now they've come plummeting down to earth, and I think the trade that they made yesterday probably signifies exactly what they think of the rest of the season is going to happen for their basketball team. And the Wolves, I think, made a move as well to what maybe they think they can do for the rest of the season. That's a great step-through move there. He finishes it off with a three. The Wolves go on and win 143-118 last night over the Jazz. They handled them, Noel and Edwards combining for 61 points in the victory. Jaden McDaniels had 14. Luke Garza had 25 off the bench for the Wolves last night. Got our nifty graphics here, folks. 53% from three, which is crazy good. They get set now for another monster game with apparently their new rivals with Memphis coming up on Friday. More importantly, as you look at the up-to-date standings now in the Western Conference and where they're at, again, it's going to fluctuate day to day. Wolves moved from 9th to 8th by winning yesterday, only because Golden State was off. The Pelicans hold the 7th spot, but boy, things got interesting in the Western Conference over the last 12 hours by what some teams have done before the trade deadline. And the Wolves are one of them. The Wolves decided to move on from D'Angelo Russell yesterday, trading Russell to the Lakers as part of a 3-team deal where Russell goes back to the Lakers, team that originally drafted him, and we can talk about how horrendous the D'Angelo Russell deal was because that was the one that sent Russell to Golden State for Wiggins. And, by the way, the Wolves gave up that unprotected first-round pick that I think will haunt them for a long time on that. I mean, D'Lo has been playing, I think, obviously his best ball as a Wolf over probably the last month and a half, clearly playing for a contract. I think the Wolves wanted to make this deal last summer. All indications when we were talking about this that they wanted to do it and couldn't find a willing partner. Now they do with the Lakers. Here are the specifics, at least on the Wolves side of things, of what they get in the deal. As they will get Mike Conley. Wow, look at this, guys. This is nice. Mike Conley comes from the Jazz, along with Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They get 3 second-round picks from Utah. That doesn't make up for all the first-round picks they gave the Jazz for Rudy Gobert, but I digress. The Jazz get Russell Westbrook from the Lakers, a 2027 first-round pick. And the Lakers get D'Angelo Russell, and by the way, 2 former Wolves who went to the Jazz in the Gobert deal in Malik Beasley and Jared Vanderbilt on this. Now, there's several different pieces to this. I think for the Wolves, they certainly have upgraded for what they needed to do at the point. They weren't going to sign Russell. That the ship had sailed there. Conley has been around a while, but they don't need any more shooters on the Wolves. They need a facilitator. Conley can do that. Westbrook's days are over. Just Russell Westbrook has not looked the same for the last couple of years. So the Jazz are, all right, let's if we can tank as best we can to get to the bottom and get a better pick, because we've got a few picks now, including the Wolves, they can do that. And for the Lakers, if they're putting more guys around LeBron, granted, the Lakers, as we sit right now, sit 13th in the Western Conference standings. In relation to, they are they're 3.5 games back of the Wolves for the 8th spot. And remember, it's the top 6 are guaranteed into the postseason. 7 through 10 get to the play-in tournament. So the Lakers made a move. And then, as most of us were sleeping, I was, and then woke up. My phone was buzzing near my head and alarms were going off because there was another trade that went down at about 12:30 this morning. And that was Kevin Durant being shipped out by the Brooklyn Nets to the Phoenix Suns just a few days after Kyrie Irving was traded by the Nets to the Dallas Mavericks. Now you consider the NBA's premier player, best player, is going to Phoenix in a monstrous trade here. I mean, this is exactly look what the Nets are getting back here. Mikal Bridges, really good player. Cam Johnson, really good player. Jay Crowder is what he is. And then the unprotected picks there, and those are first-round picks in 23, 25, 27, and 29. They have Phoenix's picks there. It ends one of the all-time blunders in Brooklyn where they tried to put Durant, Irving, and James Harden together. How'd that work out? It didn't. And now the Suns will have Devin Booker, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, and Kevin Durant on the same team. The Suns, by the way, have been middling around here for the better part of the season, are in 5th in the West. And suddenly it gets awfully interesting and Durant's still hurt. He's going to be back after the All-Star break, so within 10 to 12 days. But holy cow, you've added him to that lineup. Phoenix looks awfully formidable here to do some things. Now, granted, Denver is really good. Grizzlies are really good. Sacramento's been good, but they're not proven. Dallas obviously added Kyrie, and the Eastern Conference, by the way, just got wide open, even more so than maybe it already was, with Boston and Milwaukee leading the charge there. And we still have 6 hours to go before the deadline here. So is there more movement to happen? I would bet so, but the big fish, I don't know if anybody thought he actually would be on the move. And how about kudos to the NBA for swooping in. I'm sure the NFL loves this and taking away all the steam out of Super Bowl week by having this go down. Now, the skeptic in me would say, now, hang on a second. The NFL has done this to everybody. You'll remember last year on Selection Sunday, what were we talking about? Tom Brady coming out of retirement. They have done this. They have clomped on everybody over the last couple of years. So, turnabout is fair play here that this could go down, that the NBA could hijack what the NFL wants to do. EB, what do you got for me?
The Nets, according to Woj, the Nets are going to explore trade scenarios for Jay Crowder.
Okay, so they're not done yet, it appears. So we'll see what goes down. Again, as we mentioned, we got 6 hours left before the deadline, and the best player in the league is on his way from Brooklyn to Phoenix, back to the Western Conference. And by the way, no one's talking about Golden State. The Warriors are still there, too, with all of their pieces. Whew. All of that said, and we'll monitor any more deals that go down on our show this morning. Lots to get to today. At 9:35, the executive director of the North Dakota High School Activities Association, Matt Fetsch, will join us on a monumental day yesterday for his board and for the state. What is ahead for them? There is a lot of work to do. It's not just, okay, it's going to happen. There is a lot to do between now and next February and March to make this happen. We'll ask Matt about the upcoming steps there. At 10 o'clock, in his usual time slot, Jory Collins will join us from Omaha. The Bison women start a big stretch tonight. They have 6 games to go in the season. They begin tied for second, and they play 5 of their last 6 games against teams underneath them in the standings. We'll preview that coming up at 10 o'clock. And at 10:35, we'll welcome back to our show Tom Kirchoffner, former boys basketball coach at Cheyenne. He joined us almost a year ago to discuss 3 classes. He had the initial homework. He slaved over this for a long time. I don't know if it's a victory lap for him today, but I know there was plenty of people that were congratulating Tom yesterday and crediting him with getting this started. So I wanted to get Kirch's thoughts about what he saw and the changes from his plan to what actually has been enacted and where we go forward now with this. So that's coming up at 10:35. We got a lot to break down on the 3 classes. We'll do that when we come back. We'll field your calls, emails, texts, tweets. I already got a bunch here, and we'll do that over the next hour and 45 minutes or so. Let's get it started. Hot Mike returns after this on WDAY Extra and InForum.com. Don't forget, we've got Bison men's basketball coming up tonight on WDAY Extra. The stretch run begins. 6 games to go. The Bison men sit in 6th in the Summit League. They'll welcome in Omaha with new head coach Chris Crutchfield. Our coverage begins at 7 o'clock tonight on WDAY Extra and InForum.com. Plenty of Bison Hoops chatter coming up in our second hour. Okay. Lots to get to here. I got a bunch of emails, texts, and tweets. I'm going to put up our poll question right now, which you can vote at Hot Mike WDAY on our Twitter page. And it's pretty simple on that, saying, what's your biggest concern with a 3-class basketball plan? Is it we didn't need it, the tournament's happening at the same time, or competitive balance? You can go to our Hot Mike Twitter page at Hot Mike WDAY to vote on that. Already, I appreciate one answer saying people will start thinking that South Dakota has the right number of football classes. That's spot on. Appreciate that, since they have 7 in South Dakota for some reason. Okay, there's a few things. I put a graphic together, kind of a need to know of what we're talking about here with the 3-class system. And I think for those that are wondering where you're going to be at, the article I did at InForum.com has the complete breakdown of who's going to be where. But there's still some, I think, confusion on the actual physical tournaments. So let's spell that out. The Class A and B tournaments are going to happen on the same weekend, meaning the girls A and B will be at the same weekend in 2 separate cities. Next year, that'll be Jamestown for the girls' Class B and Minot for the girls' Class A. The Super A remains the same, which I believe next year it's in Bismarck. Bismarck and Fargo are going to rotate for the Super A. Nothing's changing there. And then the boys' B will take place that following weekend along with the boys' A in Minot and in Fargo. The boys B to be in Minot, the boys A in Fargo. The last point on there, I think, is the most important to me. The games are going to be played at the same time. Because I've already had people complaining, and I'll say complaining, about streaming, which, haven't we done this before? And the television part of this. Well, why don't you sell off to Beck? Or why don't you sell it to Midco? No, we have the exclusivity to this. We are more than capable of handling it. I will tell you this. It's the North Dakota High School Activities Association that's going to make you choose. They're the ones that are putting this on the same weekends. I'm not a fan of that. I haven't been since I saw the plan come out in August. And I told the focus group that. I told anybody who would listen about that. Now it's reality. It's on us to make it work, and we will. You're watching a channel right now that's been the home of live sports, and we will have live tournament games next year. I would say for the viewers and fans, that's the part that they're going to take a chance on, and a risk, actually. Because I know there are some that love to go to the Class B, that buy the ticket for all 3 days to watch the 12 games and not leave their seats. They can still do that, but also full well know there's another tournament going on at the same time, and the same time slots as well. And all this will come out in the coming months. I'm not at liberty to speak a ton about it yet because it's not all confirmed, and I think there's still some I's to dot and T's to cross. But you should know that's our plan is to do it. I'm not complaining about that. And I think we have a staff that is excited for it, knowing full well it's a challenge, and I don't think anybody's going to back down from that, not the group that I know that I work with on a day-to-day basis. I wanted to get to a couple of emails that I received or tweets that I've gotten over the last, I'd say, 12 to 18 hours on this. Stupidest thing I've ever heard. It's going to ruin the Class B. That's fine. If you want, that's your opinion. Bishop Ryan being in the B almost every year is the problem with the B. They should do the right thing and play A like the other private schools in the big North Dakota towns. I know there are still some that are not thrilled that Bishop Ryan is still in the smallest class. That has to do totally with attendance. A 3-class system where the middle class was smaller would be better right now, in my opinion. Instead, this class shifted the problem elsewhere. Hopefully, in 2 to 3 years, adjustments can be made before more harm than good is done for the smallest schools in the new Class A. I've had a lot of feedback on that on the middle class, because now that involves Valley City, Devil's Lake is there, Wahpeton is there, Central Cass, Kindred, Watford City. Four Winds Minnewacan is there, Thompson. And, yeah, there is a wide breadth of enrollment size there, much like there is personally in what Class B is now. Even you can want to say that in what Class A is. Because I'll say this, and if I'm being a homer for Valley City, then so be it. But right now, there's no similarity between Valley City and Fargo-Davies. There isn't. Kirchoffner's got the numbers, and I'll ask him about it, and he can give it to you. I don't think Valley City has beaten West Fargo, Cheyenne, or Davies in about 10 years. 10! And remember, Valley City opted down. Valley City played Class B hoops for a couple years. Not that long ago. So it's not just, and I've made this point, I'm not hammering these particular towns, but if you were to look at Gwinner, Milner, and I know they're co-oping right now with Sargent County, but it's been 10 years since Milner won the Class B. Huge deal that Milner won it. Now they don't even have to even field their own team, that they have to co-op with their biggest rivals from Foreman and Gwinner to form Sargent County. And there's still nothing compared to what Kindred and Castleton have. Kindred and Castleton are only going this way, folks. Who knows? I mean, Troy Racer brought this up on the show on Tuesday. They might be Class A in 5 years anyway. And the part, and we're going to ask Matt Fetsch about this in about 10 minutes, that I think also people need to know about is the reclassification committee, which is going to meet every 2 years to listen on schools that either move up or move down. And it's not just for basketball. That's for all sports. I think football will certainly be beneficial on that. We're in a basketball mode right now, but that would certainly be helpful for football. I think that needs to be reminded and remembered about. Nothing is permanent on this. And again, I'll go back to the stats that I had, and you can read my column. It's at InForum.com right now on what's next. And I'll just do this real quick. The numbers on this are just startling to me. Since 2014, 72 state tournament berths. I'm even counting 2020 because we knew the field for the 2020 Class B, even though it didn't play out. These are the amount of teams. 35 teams have made it to the state tournament, so not even half. Region 1, our backyard, has had 5 teams make it. 5 out of 10. Oak Grove, 3 times. Richland twice. Kindred twice. Northern Cass and Wymer Lidgerwood snuck in there. Region 2 has had 5 teams. The one that is really egregious to me is Region 5 and Region 6. Region 5, they've had 3 teams make it to state over a 10-year span. 3. Shiloh Christian has made it a total of 8 times in that span. Flasher made it once, and Turtle Lake was the other. And I remember how big a deal it was for either one of those to make it to the state tournament because that's Shiloh's backyard. By the way, Shiloh would move up too. Region 6. Rugby has been fantastic. Rugby's moving up too. Rugby has made it a total of 4 times. Bishop Ryan has made it a total of 5 times. Our Redeemers snuck in there and made it once, and they made it all the way to the championship game. Region 4 and Region 7 also only have 4 teams that have made it. Region 4, that's been dominated. That's 4 wins. Region 7 has been dominated by Trinity and Beulah. They're also moving up. And the comeback is, well, let's give everybody a trophy, and let's, we're doing that now. I disagree with that. Personally, that's my opinion. When it's stacked against you before you even start, why would you even go out to play? And I think the numbers of participation are seeing that. Now, do I think there are more going to come out and play? I don't. But I do think it opens the opportunity for more to have success, and maybe that gets more people to come. I don't know. But when you know it already, and it's like baseball, and I love the sport with every fiber of my being, and my favorite team is playing the way the game is played right now, they are stacking the deck. The Mets have went out and spent gargantuan sums of money to buy the best team possible. So stacking it up against like the Nationals or the Royals or the Pirates or the Marlins, that they know they have no chance to win the World Series. They know they don't. On a much smaller scale, these schools know there's no way we're going to get there. There's no way we make the region tournament, let alone get to state. And you can say, and I think there's some merit to this as well, and we got to go, Matt's waiting for us here, that this was a plan put into place just to get the privates out of the Class B. I think there's some merit to that because there was at least 2 or 3 times since we started broadcasting, and I can say this because I was doing the games, that you would see a noticeable decline in interest, especially when you had more than one private school make a semifinal. And I think like a couple years ago, it was 2021, it was Kindred against Edgeley Cullum Montpelier. And there was a lot of attention for that, because Kindred was now the big bad bully, and Edgeley Cullum Montpelier was they were David. They were going to beat Goliath, and everyone hoping for that Hillsborough and Epping. It doesn't happen anymore. We're in a different era of North Dakota basketball and population and geography. Things have to evolve. Change is hard, and it's going to be for everybody, including us. Let's take a break. We come back. We'll ask Matt Fetsch, Executive Director of the NDHSAA, what's ahead, the biggest challenges going forward now with 3-class basketball reality. Hot Mike is back after this on WDAY Extra, InForum.com. Welcome back, everybody, on a busy Thursday morning. Hot Mic rolls on. WDOI Extra, InForum.com. Obviously, our big talker today has been for quite a bit, has now become into effect. Starting next season, 3 classes will take place in boys and girls basketball with the 2023-24 school year. The man who runs the show, the North Dakota High School Activities Association, the executive director, is good enough to join us here this morning. Mr. Matt Fetsch is back with us here. There's 100 questions I got to throw at you. I guess the first one is just, is there one common either misconception or facts that are out there that are being thrown around that aren't right you want to address, or anything right off the hop to say, okay, this, I've heard this is not accurate?
Not that I'm aware. People, we've had quite a few calls this morning, just clarification type things from our member schools, particularly from our ADs, and just try and do our best to answer their questions. What is, I guess, for the board, what is topic 1A then today to attack, to get, you have a little over a year to get this ready. What in your mind is 1A to get ready for? Yeah, I know I kind of equate it to July of 2020 when the board made the decision, we're going to have all our fall tournaments, our winter tournaments, our spring tournaments in the middle of COVID. We don't care what it looks like. We don't care if there's fans there, but we're going to crown champions in every sport and activity. That was the easy part, July 16th, 2020. And then the months to follow were, how the heck do we do this? Yep. So it's, very similar, just probably a much tighter timeline. Scheduling wise, the athletic directors, I would venture to guess within a week, they're probably going to have schedules for next year, and they'll be ready to go based off the information they have. On our end, state tournament venues typically are done 7 years out. I'm guessing they will, on April 4th at the next regularly scheduled board meeting, officially be approved for both next year and years to come. Really where a lot of the meat and potatoes venue-wise will be more at that regional level and state qualifier level. And we've already started those conversations with potential hosts, just finding out who's available as you look at whether it's Summit League schedules or North Star Athletic Association schedules, just find out what all the options are and give our board the best information possible. Matt, the Jamestown Civic Center looks like it's going to be one to host the girls Class B. Can you describe what needs to be done there? I know it used to be a host. What you've heard from the city of Jamestown? I know you go there for baseball and softball regularly. What are the challenges for them to get ready for an event like this? Yeah, and that, again, approval, I would assume, will be in April on where that site will be. That's obviously one of the options. That weekend, I think most people are aware, but there's just so much going on in our state. We have East and West Region basketball. That basically takes Fargo and Bismarck out of the equation. We have the A tentatively scheduled, their middle division in Minot, and then UND hockey scheduled to be home that weekend. And it just really narrows down options. On the front side, they've been very upfront, transparent. They're willing to invest in the facility if it's something that's going to be used regularly. Hotel wise, last time the state basketball tournament was there, 2005, I actually was there. My school was in it. I was a first-year teacher. And, just hotel-wise, it's incredible the number of hotels they have versus 2005. So I think there's some opportunity there. But again, that's all going to be over this next month plus 2 months, a major part of the conversation. I know you weren't part of the proposal of but it falls back now on, for fans as they look at this, the state schedules are going to overlap, that you're going to have 2 tournaments running concurrently. Are you worried about diluting what the B was in each division, girls and boys, by having fans maybe having to choose now? Yeah, that'll be, this past Monday, our tickets went on sale for the state B boys tournament for our general public, and our phone was lit up all morning, whether it was, operator error, trying to find tickets, trying to find the link, but there's a huge interest there. There's reserved tickets available. And yeah, those are the folks that'll ultimately decide. I'm sure they'll be going to a tournament, whether it's venue or the teams involved, they'll have to make that decision. But that's a big part of the conversation, just locally, internally. with that, and is a combined tournament option better, and so on, and just with all the different obstacles. We have the combined tournament in the current Class A. It works really well. The part we're very fortunate with is there's 16 teams in that tournament in one city, and typically roughly 6 of them are local teams, whether it's in Fargo or Bismarck. So you're really looking at housing around 10 teams that are coming to town. That can be done. When you're looking at a combined B or middle division tournament, likely looking at 16 separate teams coming in, that really changes the dynamic. And it just wasn't something I don't think anyone was comfortable with right off the bat. Let's combine these tournaments, see how it plays out, because the last thing you want is a complete disaster, whether it's hotel-wise, venue-wise. So we know we can do it with 8 at a time, and then over the couple of years, we're going to have so much data moving forward on what'll work, what venue will work, what attendance is, and really obviously don't know all those answers right now. And then another piece with that didn't get talked about a whole lot was scheduling, where if you combine those tournaments, I'll use girls basketball as an example. I think the hope is that there's interdivision play, particularly between the A and B division. And if you have those combined tournaments, their complete seasons are 2 weeks different. So the first 2 weeks of the season, you lose an opportunity for those interdivision games. And the last 2 weeks of the regular season, you'd lose a month of the season for them to do that. So off the bat, it just wasn't feasible. But 10 years from now, that may be the norm, and it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Matt, I've been asked this. I've pondered this as well. I know you and I have talked about it. Is there any flexibility going forward after you get some data on this to maybe expand the winter schedule? That last weekend in March is sitting there, and I know the spring sports season starts there. Is there an opportunity to do that, or at least talk about that going forward?
I think the opportunity is always there to talk about it. To be honest, haven't heard really any clamoring from member schools to do that. And the problem with it, one weekend doesn't solve it. It would need to be 2 to actually do it right. And now you're into April with your basketball postseason. We have indoor track meets already the weekend of the State B-Boys basketball tournament. I'm hoping the weather stays the way it is, and it's not uncommon to have high school baseball games going in March, particularly out west, and with all the turf fields we have. So we haven't heard much push for that. And the other piece, not every year, but a lot of years, Easter falls into there too. So if you're dedicated to that calendar, we're not playing that weekend. That's the reality. And then you're pushing another way. Now you're into mid-April in order to accommodate that. So there's a lot of issues with that. So, for the time being, I think everyone thought this was the best option. But moving forward, there's going to be a lot of tweaking. There's no doubt about it.
I want to ask, because I think you mentioned things that weren't talked about, as the reclassification committee and what that will go into, because I think there's, people think this is hard and fast. This is how it's going to be forever. And that's not going to be the case, because there are going to be schools that will come before this committee to ask either to move up or to opt down. Can you give us the kind of the nuts and bolts on what this will constitute?
Not really, because it's going to be developed over the next year. But I think, in all honesty, as far as tweaks that were made to the plan, that was probably the number one factor in getting more schools on board and supporting it. And it's something that we believe, if done right, would obviously carry over to football as well, or any activity with more than 2 classifications. But it has been very well received. And again, the reality is now putting it together. What's it look like? Who's it comprised of? My worry, the conversation at the board or committee level has really been, it really shouldn't be board members. It should be individuals out in the trenches that are directly impacted one way or another, and get their input and have them make a recommendation to the board who would ultimately approve it. And my fear is, who the heck are we going to find to want to be on that committee? And I've been very surprised, just the random emails. I had a handful more last night. Hey, if you're ever looking for someone, I'd be interested. So I'm starting to become a little more confident it's a committee that could be filled, but there will be a lot of challenges that go with it, especially initially.
What is the biggest logistical headache for you as a board that you have coming forward here?
That's a good question. I think for the immediate answer there, it's definitely venues. And again, I'm not even talking so much at the state level, at regional level, and finding venues adequate where we're going to be able to fit the number of people we think that are going to want to attend some of these tournaments. And again, just the turnaround time with schedules already done for next year, check with college schedules, just what that's going to look like. But off the top of my head, I think that would definitely be number one.
I know you're only guessing on this, but do you believe volleyball is not far behind then to potentially petition for 3 classes?
I think potentially. I mean, there's been some talk of it, getting it going. Do we have to follow the same process, so on? And I think whether it's before or after that, my assumption is this spring or even at the June meeting, I'd be surprised if my board doesn't look at the addition of a classification policy they created, because this is the first time it's ever been gone through, utilized, and they'll have to assess, what needs to change here, what could be done different. And if that happens, I think that would give some guidance if there is a group that wishes to do the same for volleyball.
Matt, I know you're a busy man. I'll let you go on this. Just, I've had plenty of emails, tweets about, well, this is just everybody gets a trophy and we have to have another classification for and we have just everybody gets to the state tournament. How would you respond to those claims that they're creating another one just because it's not fair for some teams to make it to the state tournament right now?
Well, I think you look at the feedback, and the term you hear a lot, and it's been around forever in football, is whether it's parity or competitive balance. Yeah. And as far as what defines that, it's very loosely defined, but it seems like the reality for most is their definition of competitive balance is making a state tournament. And it's really, there's no way to sugarcoat it. And if you look at, just football the last year, just looking at scores week to week, there were some divisions that were very competitive, very balanced. There are a lot of upsets in the playoffs that traditionally you have not had. And, the reality is 240 more kids roughly will be able to play in a state tournament next year. And whether it's part of the initial, wasn't necessarily mentioned in any proposal or even at the board level, but I think when it gets down to those folks giving input and letting the board know what they want, that's probably the number one factor in the grand scheme of things.
I know you're a busy man because you got hockey and wrestling right on tap. Thanks so much for giving us a few minutes. I know we'll be chatting again in the next few weeks. I'll be seeing you on the road. So thanks for doing this morning. I appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks, Tom. We'll see you soon.
Good to see you, bud. Matt Fetsch, Executive Director of the North Dakota High School Activities Association, giving us some input here on where this goes from 3 classes. And I got a bunch more of comments, and we'll try to get to everybody. And I appreciate the feedback here today. And I think the biggest thing going forward on this, we're not going to have a hardcore answer deal right now. Like for 2024, this is how it's going to be, and that's the only way it's going to be going forward. There's going to be flexibility on this. And I had one tweet come in that says, Dom, don't complain about logistics. If you do, let another network in. I wasn't complaining about it. I'm telling you the facts of how we're going to do this, all right? I'll just, if ESPN has the rights to the NCAA women's basketball tournament, right? They have all the games. It's a logistical hurdle. They want it. They're not going to we'll let Fox come in and do it. No, that's not it. The same with us. We're not going to we won't let Beck or Midco come in and say, hey, you want this? No. We have exclusive rights. We're going to do this. And again, we don't make the schedules. Everything's going to come back. I know full well know. I can set my watch to it on my phone that I'm going to get blown up with tweets and texts and emails. Well, Izzo, why the hell is the same tournament happening at the same time? Why are you making us choose? I'm not. I'm saying it right now on February 9th, 2023. I'm not making you choose. The high school association is. Until they want to change the schedule, this is the way it's going to be. I don't think it's right either, but I'm not the one making you choose. But feel free. You can tweet blast to email. I'm sure they'll come. It's all my fault, but I'm just trying to get it out there. And we'll do it. We're going to do an awesome job. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait. We've done it before where we've had a broadcast going at the same time. Last year, we did a broadcast. I was in a game at DL while the Class B was going on in Minot. We can do it. There's no doubt about that. Is it a logistical hurdle? Yep. But it's going to be awesome when we do it. I can remember, and folks may remember this too. I know we got to go to break. The first few years we did the Class A quarterfinals, which had never been on television before we got the contract. 2014, we started doing it, where we would alternate broadcasts. We would start with the girls' quarterfinal, then go to the boys, then back to the girls, and we did it all day. And it was awesome. It was a technical nightmare, but we did it, and we did it for, I think, 3 years. And I'm sure some people didn't like it. I think I heard from more people that said, hey, it was great to see it on TV. Now we have it where the full games are available. You can watch on television or stream it. It's a challenge, but we're excited about it. It's going to be tough, but I'm looking forward to it. We'll take our final break of hour one. Jory Collins coming up, NDSU women's basketball coach. When we start our second hour, much more on the 3-class. Now, it's not a proposal. It's, I can't say law, it's the new rules of high school basketball in North Dakota. Back on a busy Thursday after this. Appreciate all the feedback we've had so far. We'll get to some more tweets and emails when we start our second hour. We come back, though, we'll chat with Bison women's basketball coach Jory Collins. He'll do that when hour two of Hot Mic begins right after this.
This is Hot Mic. Hot Mic on the networks of WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo.
Welcome back, everybody, on a busy Thursday morning. WDAY Extra, InForum.com. We mentioned we've got Bison men's hoops here tonight on Extra as they'll welcome in the Omaha Mavericks. Our coverage begins at 7 o'clock. That also means that the Bison women's basketball team is on the road as they begin their stretch run. 6 games to go in the regular season. NDSU starts the night tied for second with Oral Roberts after a split last weekend, beating South Dakota and losing to South Dakota State. Jory Collins joins us each and every Thursday at 10 o'clock, and here he is in lovely Omaha, Nebraska, as the Bison set to take on Omaha tonight. So we were just visiting about this off air. You know, 6 games to go. It truly is the stretch run for a team that you've had some great success already, but literally everything is still in front of you. Is that basically what you told the team over the last couple days?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've played some games this year, Dom, where you know, it's kind of brought to us, hey, we haven't if we do this tonight, we haven't done this in a really long time. Or this hasn't happened here in a long time. And I told them, I said, hey, as long as those are positive things that are happening, then that means we're on the right track. You know, 6 games to go with you know, if it all goes your way, you got a chance to win 20 games. Hopefully with the tournament too, we can get to that threshold. That's kind of a benchmark in college basketball.
No doubt.
But even if we don't, if we end up 18, 19, whatever, you know, for me, as we build this thing, it's just another step that I feel like we're taking. I'm proud of our group this year. You know, blending in 8 new players is never easy, but they've come together great, and we've had a lot of fun times. But we've had a lot of learning moments too, and we're going to use those down the stretch and try to finish this thing on a high note. I think our players are excited about it. Sometimes you get into this part of the season, and depending on how your season's going, it's either, you know, hey, we only got this much left, or it's darn it, we only got this much left. You know, so our group's pretty excited to keep on playing. And kind of see what we can do.
You mentioned the 8 new players. You've done this road trip. Is this the hardest road trip just physically on the bodies in the league? This one, the Omaha Denver one?
I don't know. You know, anytime you got to go to Macomb is not easy. I know getting to St. Thomas is a breeze, but the however you find a way to get from Fargo to Macomb or Minneapolis to Macomb is not an easy wherever you fly into. You gotta fly and then bus for a long time after that. And you can never come home the same day almost. So I would put that one up there.
Okay.
You know, I like Omaha as a city. I like Denver. Those are ones that are okay for me.
For fans that watched the game or at the game on Saturday, Jory, say, well, South Dakota State did it again, beat the Bison by a lot. I know. Is there anything you take from that game with your team and say, you know what, we got to flush that one. It's over, and we're on to Omaha here tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I told them after the game, I said, I'm not losing sleep over this. I said, to be honest with our team, we didn't even watch it. Moved right on to UNO. When there's some things, they have their team, they have their veterans. I need them to graduate. That's no secret. But there's in certain situations, it's, what do you want to do? What are we going to do?
Yep.
And that's all the credit to them. But we have to be able to move on and keep playing to our best ability. And when we get them again, and we say, hey, well, the goal is hopefully we can get them in championship game, and we can get down there and we can get in that setting, and we'll do whatever we got to hang in the game and try to win it. But right now we got 6 regular season games to go. That's what we want our focus to be. I mean, we put up the standings and where we're at and what we have in front of us and the opportunity we have here to finish a good season on a great note, and just moved right on.
We're watching the highlights of the end of the game on Thursday where Heaven had just those 2 ridiculous bank shots at the end. And I know I asked you in the post-game press conference after that about her ability to take over a game. What does that do as a coach, knowing, all right, we're going to put it in number 11's hands, and I feel pretty good about what could happen?
Well, I think any coach would tell you the game's just way easier and coaching's way easier when you got really good players. They make you look good because they're talented and can go out and make plays regardless of what you say or do. That was a situation in both those situations where I think we were ahead in both, but obviously close situations that, instead of scheming up, some different actions and plays and having a chance to mess it up, let's just give it to our best guy in the middle of the floor and see if she can get a play and finish for us. And Heaven's been up to that challenge multiple times in her last 2 or 3 years here. And, she made both those plays. We kind of got the switches we thought we'd get and like the matchups and she delivered.
When you have a player of her caliber, and I know you've been able to rely on her over the last couple of years, but to see her rise to the challenge, knowing full well what's at stake, she wanted that win just as badly as you do. That's got to make you feel pretty good when it actually goes in the hoop.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before. I think Heavens' greatest attribute is her competitiveness and will to win. She just is out there competing probably as well as any player I've ever had, just is in the game and wanting to win. And there's some times where that's to her detriment too, because she can get out of what we're doing occasionally, and just kind of go a little wild and get after it. But, that's also the thing that makes her great. So you kind of live with both those things and roll with it. But our expectations are when she has a chance to make the play that she's going to make it, because she's done it way more often than she has.
So now you have Omaha tonight, and I need to remind you about Elena Pillicota, who I didn't miss a shot when she played you guys the last time. How do you stop a player of that? How do you play effective defense against a player of her size?
Yeah, well, it's difficult. I mean, if you look at how she's been scoring lately, I mean, she's had games of 30, 28, another 26. And recently they just really started pounding it in because, they have some good players around her now. It's not as easy to just swarm her. You kind of pick your poison. Are you going to swarm them and let them take some threes, or you're going to die by, 1,000 cuts and just let her drop it in over the front of the rim? She's so big and strong that it's hard to keep her away from the basket, but she also has just unbelievable touch and skill around the rim. So, she's one of the top 10 players in this league as far as I'm concerned. And, she's been a handful for us every time we've played them. We're going to try to mix it up on her the best we can and not give her the same look over and over again. And hopefully just, kind of keep her off balance a little bit and not be able to get into a rhythm.
When you mentioned that, because you got to pick your poison basically, because Cave's a really good player, Leah Stanley's a really good player. I mean, it's like, who do you want who do you want to not necessarily beat you, but who you want to, I guess, is that boiled down to that?
Yeah. Well, somebody, one or the other is going to get more opportunities.
Yeah.
When you have somebody that's that much of a low post presence, you got to dig or you got to double or you got to front. And every time you do one of those things, then something else has to happen on the other side of the floor, deep midline help if you're fronting, or if you open it up, then you're in closeout situations against kids that can really drive it. So that's, people want to get away from low post players and everybody wants to stretch the floor and shoot threes and stuff until you go up against somebody like that. And you remember how big of an issue it is to stop somebody that close to the basket. So it's our players are well aware, our girls that have to go up against her and try to hold her out of the lane are always like, dang, she's, it's hard to move and hard to hold your ground. But we'll be up for the task. We'll throw multiple bodies at her. Like I said, we'll give her different looks and just try to keep her off balance.
Jory Collins joining us from Omaha, Bison women's basketball head coach. They take on the Mavericks tonight at 7. I know it's been a thorn in the side for you this year about foul trouble. And is it as simple as just telling, hey, we have to stop fouling as much? How do you coach that?
Yeah, it's hard. And that's just been it's been an issue for us more than it ever has in any other time this particular year. I think we have people playing really hard and just have to be able to have some poise in some situations. A lot of that's young and new players in situations. But we've put people at the foul line way more often than we need to and than what I think we should. And that's like the ultimate neutralizer. You play good defense all over the floor, and then all of a sudden at the biggest and most important point, you bail them out with just bringing a hand down. When we're preaching to them, hey, just trust that if it's over contested hands, the percentage is going to be low enough. They're going to miss that shot. Contest it and box out. You don't have to try to block it. You don't have to try to steal it. And that's just goes against human nature because you're wanting to do what you can do. Yeah. So those are things we just got to continue to drill. And we talk about it on a daily basis at practice. And, we're well aware of it. It's just getting that in action is tough.
I got to ask, going back to Heaven, that her and Taylor Brown last week had a chance to go to Detroit Lakes Middle School to meet a few middle schoolers. One of them had wrote a letter about who she wanted to have dinner with. How big a deal is that for your players to have that kind of interaction in the community?
I love it. And I love it for that girl and her school. And, that you write a random, doing a little assignment in your 5th grade class and your teacher puts it on social media. And then next thing you know, a few days later, the person you want to have lunch with rolls into your lunchroom. I mean, that's got to be a great experience for, I know Heaven and Taylor loved it. But those are things that leave lasting impressions, Don. I mean, you get something like that as a 5th grader, somebody like with Heaven's stature, in the area. And if you're a basketball, I know she's a young basketball player that you look up to people like Heaven and Taylor there. That's something she'll remember forever.
Yeah.
And I'll bet you 10 years from now when she's playing, she'll feel obligated to do the same thing and give back to some other little girl. And, that's how it gets steamrolling. And I'm proud of our players. They've always been more than willing to be out in the community and do what anybody needs us to do. And, we'd be willing to even do more if opportunities are presented to us. So it's fun for them to be able to interact with fans and do those things. But I know it leaves a lasting impression as well.
It's a really, really neat deal. And if you missed the story, you can check it out at InForum.com. We ran that over the weekend, a really neat deal that happened in Detroit Lakes last week. So I saw this last night with Connecticut losing to Marquette. It's the first time now that Connecticut has lost back-to-back games in 30 years. I mean, we talk about unreal stats, Jory. That one might be the best I've ever heard. You lose basketball games all the time. People lose their 2-game losing. 30 years? Really?
Yeah. Well, Gino probably ought to get fired. We probably ought to be asking for his job.
It's unbelievable.
Lose 2 in a row. Yeah, it's that's it. That's really, I actually hadn't heard that, but that's pretty insane. That's almost, I guess they went through that one year where they didn't lose at all for
right.
however many games, 90, 100. I can't remember what that was, but they've just been that good. They've been that good for that long. And are really still that good.
Yes.
South Carolina is just also that good.
Well, and also UConn's minus their two like Paige Beckers and Flood aren't playing right now. Those are two of the best players in the country.
Right. Well, it's, you get, and he's talked about this a bunch. When you attract the top talent, your 8, 9, and 10 guy that doesn't really play very much was in the McDonald's All-American game,
right.
In a lot of years, so those kids have talent. Now, maybe they haven't done the things they need to do to get on the floor quite yet, but they can play the game at a high level, and then all of a sudden you have some injuries, and now you get more practice time, and now you're called upon, you get a chance to show what you can do. So I'm excited about the women's tournament this year and what that's going to, it's I think South Carolina is obviously the favorite, but man, there's several teams, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that are going to have a chance. It ought to be pretty fun.
It's going to be fantastic to see it play out. Okay, since I've never had this at all, this feeling, this experience, this is the third time in 4 years you get this on Super Bowl Sunday. What is the routine? Do you talk to anybody? Do you have people over, or do you need to be secluded to watch the Chiefs play on Sunday night?
You know what? We always talk about having people over, or I get invited over to friends' houses to watch it, and I would just rather sit in my own living room, Dom, because I really get into it. And we may have a couple staff over and stuff but it's only Chiefs people. And we make food all day.
Nice.
And go through the whole day of hype. And then lock into the game, and I'm locked into every snack. So I don't like to be at other people's houses where I got to have people want to talk and stuff. I don't want to talk. I just want to watch the game.
I love it.
And I want to cheer for my team. That's it.
Okay, so give us the breakdown. What do you think of this game with Philly?
I think it's going to be an awesome game.
Yeah.
I think Philly's the real deal. I think I think the Chiefs are healthier now. I gave my prediction yesterday. I'm going with my guys, 31-28.
Ooh, okay.
Kansas City Chiefs for their second Super Bowl in 4 years.
You're going to be unbearable to deal with if that ends up being the case. I'm just going to.
Hey, I don't gloat. I don't have to tell anybody. That's my team. Super Bowl champs. What do you got to talk about?
By the way, I saw that the Royals are bringing back the powder blue jerseys this year. Did you see that?
Those are so good.
Aren't those awesome? They never should have left those in the first place.
I know.
Those are
what I grew up on.
Oh, they're so good.
That's what George Brett was wearing when I was a kid.
Exactly. Those are the best.
I love those. Bobby Witt Jr. is going to look good in those.
Great to see you, man. Thanks for the time. Good luck tonight. Safe travels, and enjoy the game on Sunday, okay?
Will do. Thanks, Dom.
Good to see you, bud. Jory Collins, NDSU women's basketball head coach, joins us each and every Thursday at 10 o'clock. Bison women in Omaha tonight. Mavericks are 6-7 as we start in the Summit League standings. If you saw the first game between Omaha and the Bison, Elena Pilacuda is their tall forward down low. I think it was 14 of 14 from the field against NDSU. I mean, she was unstoppable, and yet the Bison still won by double digits. As you look, these are the standings starting the night. South Dakota State plays USD this weekend. That game is in Vermillion. The first time they played, the Jacks only won by 59 against South Dakota. So there's an opportunity here for the Bison this weekend. They play Omaha and Denver, 6-7 respectively in the standings. If the Bison sweep this weekend, you've got now a realistic possibility of the two, knowing Oral Roberts comes here a week from tonight for a monster game. That's going to be a lot of fun. As that's the only team the Bison play that's ahead of them in the standings. After that, it's Kansas City, Western, and St. Thomas. And you can see that's 8, 9, and 10 in the Summit League. Jory's exactly right. If the Bison right now have 14 wins, they have 6 games to go. You win 5 of 6, that's 19 wins. 19! Bison women's basketball hasn't come near that stratosphere in 15 years. And I'll tell you this right now. If you get to 19 wins, and we haven't even got to the conference tournament yet. Let's say you win 2 there, you're at 21, you're making the NIT if you don't beat South Dakota State. You're going to be in a postseason tournament, which is the WNIT. I don't know anybody who would have thought that before this season began. Not me. I'd like to know who thought that. Now, there's a lot that can happen, but these are teams that NDSU has handled already, and I know they've got to go to Western and go to St. Thomas. You still have to play the games, but those teams, at this point of the season, you're wondering again, like Jory said, gosh, how much more of the season do we have left? It's only human to think that. They're in a real good spot right now. Highlights of that coming up on our news tonight at 10. We'll take a break. A lot of emails. We'll check in on our poll question. We'll get back to that here on a Thursday morning. We're back on Hot Mic right after this. Welcome back, everybody. So, still pouring through a bunch of tweets, texts, and emails I got. We can read a couple here before we welcome on Tom Kirchoffner. Email comes in. This is when Matt Fetsch was on. Can you folks at the North Dakota High School Activity Association let other services telecast region games if WDAY is not televising them? We know they have exclusivity, but seldom does any region game get televised, and when it is, it's in the Red River Valley. I can answer that. Who's going to do that? I mean, you've got region games that are spread out from Dickinson to Newtown to Grand Forks to Fargo. I mean, Wahpeton, they're all over the place. I know Beck does a couple of regions. I know they do Region 3 and Region 8. Which has typically been Jamestown and Newtown that I've known in the past. It's how you going to do that. I'm not sure how you do that. We're doing a lot of big things here. That one would get away from us on how that goes about. Dom, as a kid who went to a competitive Region 1 school that could never get past Central Cass and Kindred, I'm very happy to see this. The all-time leading scorer in girls Class B never got to go to state because of the region she played in. Thanks for all the coverage of this. Appreciate that. There's a lot to that as well. Dom, how fair it is for a school with classes of 15 to 20 students be playing a school with classes of 80 to 100, like the majority of schools in Class B Region 1? It is the same thing in the lower Class A schools with enrollment of 100 to 120 students to be playing the Fargo schools with enrollment of 500 or 600 students. Going back to what is fair and equitable, I've been on both sides of that issue. I've coached against it, and I've had my children play against that unfairness. You wonder why participation is down when you have a 5'8" ninth grader going against a 6'4" senior night after night. North Dakota is finally joining the modern times. This is not the 1950s, and we're all not Hickory High School in Indiana. I agree with that. The tweet comes in. It's more that all state tournaments will become stale. There's a reason the Class B was the more popular state tournament by a mile. The state tournaments now feel like a year-end jamboree with the same group of teams going every single year, similar to the current Class A tournament. Well, that's where we're at with the B right now. Again, last 9 years, 72 teams. 35 of them have been the same. So we're getting the same teams every year. I've had that with fans say to me, oh, boy, they made it again? They're back again? Yep. Lynette and I have talked about this. Lynette Johnson and I, we've done that when we did the Class B girls. Like, boy, Kindred's poised to be really good for a long time. Yep. How many times did they make it? 3 or 4? Central Cass is in there a couple times. Squirrels are probably going to get back there again this year in Region 1. The Thompson girls, the Grafton girls. Again, I know it's not about fairness. That's not what sports is. I get that. There's competition. The better team wins, and you get to move on. But when it's completely stacked against you, I don't How is that to me is not competition. I don't see that. Someone smarter than me will have to explain that to me. I'm not on board with that. If you're telling me it's about the private schools, then I could understand the groundswell for that. And I did when I first saw this plan in August, that they were going to move the private schools out of Class B. Understood. There was plenty of vitriol about that. There has been for a long time, long probably before we started doing the tournaments, that people were sick of seeing Dickinson Trinity, Shiloh Christian, Fargo Oak Grove, Bishop Ryan there. Does this eliminate that? Well, it sure does at the Class B level. Yep. So if you want to get back to more of a quote-unquote traditional Class B, then you've got that. Does that mean that those schools aren't going to be competitive in the new Class A? I think they're going to be A-okay. I think they'll be able to hang in there. Trinity will do fine. Shiloh will be fine. They can compete with Central Cass. They can compete with Kindred. We've seen that. Can they compete with Valley City and Devil's Lake? I don't know. And Wahpeton? We'll find out. I understand change is super hard. It is. I'm not one easy to change either, but there can be some good out of this for people that are just still clinging to the 1980s and 90s of what the Class B is. I'm telling you where it's at right now. Okay? And where it can be going forward. We'll see. Maybe this won't work. I don't know. I'm not here carrying the mail for the high school association. I'm just telling you what, with my own two eyes, what I've seen in the 15, 16 years I've covered things, for what it's worth. How about a guy that was on the inside and developed a plan for it? We'll take a break. We come back. Tom Kirchoffner will join us, former West Fargo Sheyenne boys basketball coach. He got the ball really started on this. We'll visit with him about his emotions today when Hot Mike returns on WDAY Extra and InForum.com. Welcome back, everybody, on a busy Thursday morning. WDAY Extra, InForum.com. Still got a bunch of emails and tweets we'll try to read before we get out of here. Our next guest I'm really excited to have on because last year he came to the Bismarck Event Center with binders, folders, and all sorts of stats ready to throw at me and about 3-class basketball. And I want to say the genesis of all this honestly belongs with him. I'm not kissing up to him because he's on the show. He's been on the show. He's a friend of mine, but he honestly was the Kickstarter to that. But before that, Tom Kirchoffner, you bolted the Miami Dolphins. They make the playoffs this year, and the Packers don't. So if you want to get back in the AFC East, the door is open, by the way.
I'm not going to make that trip to being a Dolphins fan. I got rid of my gear except my Merino jersey. But the Packers, they had their chance. My wife bought some stock for me, so I got some Green Bay Packer stock and was able to go to a couple games this past year. And I was at the Lions game this past season, so we had our chances.
Wait a minute. So you went to the Jets game too, right? You saw
that. I told you I ran into you at the airport, and I apologized because I wanted to bring you to the game, and I was like, God. So Graham, I had all the other tickets allotted, so I couldn't bring you. So
it's all right. But you saw them lose twice, man, in person?
Yeah.
Oh, it's brutal.
The year before, I was undefeated, and then this past season was a really bad season. I was 2-2. But being at Lambeau is a special place.
Well, it's great to see you. I was interested just to get your emotions, your reaction when you heard this was going to go. This happened and went through yesterday.
Well, I'm excited. I'm really excited for this because it's really for the kids. This is a great thing for the state of North Dakota and a lot of schools that really never had a chance. And, we were always the big school of the big class. And I wanted to speak up for those smaller schools that never really had a chance, that were fighting an uphill battle, and I've seen people, say, oh, you just need to get a coach, or you just need to tell the kids to work harder. It's not that. I'll use Valley City, for example, talking to Dallas Doctor and their other coach, Alex, they have like 20, 21 kids go out. We had one year, 85, 90 kids. We would cut 45 kids in our program. And they're just trying to get kids that maybe never played basketball before. And this happened. They had to go guard Jackson Money, who's 6'10". So you got a kid that's never played before. He's just trying to fill the roster so they can have a JV team or a C team. It's a different level. And I just wanted to look out for those other schools and those other programs. And I thought the committee did an outstanding job. I was just pretty much, a cog in the system, and Josh and Mitch Carlson and the rest of the 3-class committee, they did an outstanding job of just laying everything out there. So kudos for them for just carrying the torch.
Tom, how close is this plan? Is there any similarities from the one you presented, the one you showed me when we were in Bismarck last year?
To be honest, I haven't broken it down and gotten the nerd stats, so to speak, and I'll text you sometime of getting ready for surgery and stuff later today. But it's very similar as far as the top class. I mean, that's really, it's not going to change there. AA, as we call it.
Yep.
The middle tier, there's, maybe a few teams, but really, the only thing that was maybe against what I thought was maybe the, having a girls team opt up and a boys team staying down, because I was just trying to think, let's keep it simplistic for an AD of trying to schedule and saying, hey, we're in this conference, but it's more or less what's good for each school, what's good for their stakeholders. And that's what it should be about.
There is plenty of pushback, as you would imagine, from some that say this is going to dilute it. This is everyone gets a trophy kind of deal. I know you heard this when you were trying to push it forward. What would you say to that?
Go to some of these games where, they're just looking at the surface. They need to look below the surface, because when we play certain schools, it's not just a varsity thing. We're winning by 50, 60. The JV's winning by 60, 70, 80. The CE teams are winning by that. So it's tough for those kids to get out, and it's not watering it down. I don't know how it's watering it down. I look at that middle tier basketball, and I think that is going to be a great state tournament of these teams battling. And I know you had Rick Smith on yesterday, and I'm excited to see them play Devil's Lake. I think I've been to Devil's Lake, and I've never seen the bleachers be full. Top bleachers have always been pushed in. And what is that going to do for those communities and those games? Now you're playing two really intense games. What is that going to do for certain programs? I think it's just going to enhance it. So it's not watering it down. It's not giving everybody a participation trophy. It's giving certain schools a chance, certain players, certain programs a chance at, getting to experience the state tournament.
I know
getting to is not giving them a trophy.
Sorry about that. I was curious. That middle class is one we haven't talked a ton about, but you mentioned with 4 wins there, they're going to be there with Wahpeton, Valley City, Devils Lake, a Hillsboro, a Kindred, a Central Cass. I've had Northern Cass, Thompson, Watford City. I've heard a lot of conversation on scheduling and travel. You did that for forever. Is that a real concern there, or is that something that can get fleshed out now over the next couple of years?
Yeah, it'll get fleshed out. It'll change. It'll adapt. I think you referenced it this week on you referenced Moneyball. Adapt or die.
Yeah.
And really, you'll make your adjustments, and there'll be teams that will be willing to play you. I know from the EDC standpoint, this is going to be a great thing for AA. And I talked to Coach Paul Chesky last night about now you have 5 games. I bet Dean Haugo at Moorhead, his phone was probably ringing off the hook, because all these East schools are saying, hey, we want to play you. We want to play you.
Yeah.
And, I was working on some things before, I left. Like, I wanted to have like the West Fargo schools play, the Minnesota schools. Hey, let's play Moorhead, Perham, and Fergus Falls, and let's play at Concordia. Let's have a basketball day. Or let's go down to Sioux Falls and showcase our kids. I've never got a chance to really showcase our kids because we've been locked with our schedule. And, nobody's really touched base on it, but the EDC playing 2-point games, I mean, I really dislike that, because that messes with the standings. And you look at West Fargo girls, they lost to Red River, and now they have no chance of winning the league because that was a 2-point game.
Right.
We haven't adjusted to, the amount of teams coming into the league.
You could have also played some schools out west, which I think you would have appreciated that when you got to state. Everybody would have, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. And we've always had one non-conference game, and we always wanted to either play St. Mary's or Manning or someone out west that would play us. I've had to turn down opportunities to go to, 2-day holiday tournaments in Bemidji or go down to the cities. Schools have reached out, and I wanted to kind of showcase North Dakota basketball, saying, hey, like, we can compete against these Minnesota schools or South Dakota schools. This is going to be a good thing for the state of North Dakota. And, 2 years ago, I think it was last year, I was trying to get a hold of Coach Kraft at Enderlin, trying to see, hey, you got some D1 prospects. Let's go against, our guys and just make one night out of it.
Yeah.
And now that there's all these extra games, I mean, I would be calling Rick Smith and saying, hey, we'll come up, we'll stay overnight, we'll play 4 wins in Devil's Lake. That'd be a great thing. Because I got a lot of respect for, their program. They do an outstanding job. And, in 2020, the COVID year, I mean, that 4 wins team was tough. I think our only loss, in summer ball, we were tied at halftime, and then we got ran out of the gym by them. They had a special team. So I would love to, start playing the top middle tier teams.
I'm interested in this because you come from a Class A, a big school background, that I had some people say, well, the class, they just don't understand the Class B. The people, even on the executive board, they just don't understand the Class B and how special it is. What would you say to that?
It was special. And things have changed. And you said it right to begin this show is they're hanging on to the 80s and 90s. Times have changed. And, this is a good thing. You get 16 more teams to the state tournament. You get 10 kids on a team. That's 160 kids get to experience playing at the Civic Center, the Event Center, the Shack, the Fargo Dome. They get to experience that. I think that's just special, being able to get that opportunity. And this is an extracurricular activity. I'm no longer, invested with, education or high school athletics. This is just an opportunity for kids to experience something in their high school career.
All right, I got to ask you a question here because now you could hopefully you could speak freely on this. How in the world is Jackson Money not a Division I basketball player? What happened there? He's doing great at Northern, but what did everybody miss?
They didn't go to our games.
Yeah.
They didn't go to our games. They probably rely, and this is not a knock on AAU, but everybody thinks they got to go to and play AAU basketball to get a college scholarship. I remember Dexter Werner told me this. He goes, if you're good enough, they'll find you. And AAU is just games, and they just get recruited locally anyway. But Jackson Money, he's a heck of a player, special player, 6'10". But he's in a great place. I remember Saul Phillips came and he just said, yeah, we might be a D2 school, but he's going to get D1 coaching. And him and Josh Vaughn, they got a special group down there. So Jackson's happy, and that's all that matters.
I get a couple of those emails or texts like, why is this kid playing in the Northern Sun? And the Northern Sun's really, really good. You know that. I think a lot of our viewers and listeners know that, but that's a guy that probably could be playing Division I basketball somewhere. At least I think so.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. And I know I was going to send this to you and McFeely, just of a potential lineup that could have happened, like with the Bison, if they would have had Grant Nelson, 6'11", Jackson Money, 6'10". If, Sam Griesel would have stayed, if Malik would have stayed, they would have had a lineup of 6'6", 6'7", 6'10". It would just been Syracuse, zone defense, 2-3, and stretch them out a little bit.
Lastly, before I let you go, I remember I talked to you when you saw the freak, the unicorn from Devil's Lake for the first time. To see where we're at now, where the legit NBA is talking about him, what do you make of that?
It's special. I'm super excited for him, and I know he's rooming with one of my former players, Tyler Terhark, and so I can kind of talk to Tyler and ask him, how he's doing and stuff like that. And the only thing against Grant is I think his junior year is he went on a vacation, and I remember talking to other coaches thinking, why would a guy go on vacation during the middle of basketball season? And then they went down to Wahpeton and they lost to Wahpeton. And that affected them in the standings. And they went from a 4 seed down to a 6 seed. And then we matched up with Devil's Lake first round and we lost to them. And we never made it. So that's my only grievance I got against Grant Nelson. Go on trips after the season. You're a basketball player. But his senior season, I know Paul Chesky talked about it, watching him and Bowden Skunberg and Mason Walters, just outstanding players, is Grant Nelson's player efficiency was off the charts. I haven't seen somebody, he was at 36, and I haven't seen somebody above 30 other than him. And so, I'll run the numbers after the season to see what, where Mason Claybo kind of stands, what he's putting out. But Jackson was around 25, 26. I think Bowden was around that. But yeah, he does all the little things. He's getting rebounds, he's blocking shots, he's changing the game.
It's great to see you, man. I'm glad you're doing well. Congratulations on this. You were more than a cog in this. You got the ball really going, and I always appreciate getting a chance to talk with you. So be well. We'll talk again soon, all right?
Oh, I appreciate you, and I know others have mentioned it, and just appreciate the coverage that you had on this. It was outstanding, and sharing the information across the state. Really appreciate it. And it wasn't probably, I don't think this could have got done without your input too.
I appreciate it, Tommy. Thanks, bud. Good to see you, man. We'll talk later. Tom Kirchoffner, former Cheyenne boys basketball coach, joining us here on this Thursday, who really got things started with the 3-class proposal. We are already at the end of the show here. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll wrap things up, get you ready for a busy Thursday. The waste management's going. They're throwing beer on the golf course. We'll wrap up the show right after this. Our show. Eric's got, are you just telling me about the Brewers here? What are you showing me here?
It's NDSU night.
Oh,
and when they're playing
and
the
they're
Brewers.
playing the Brewers. I don't want to see that hat anymore. The Bison logo's fine. The Twins hats are not good. They're just not. I saw the spring training hats come out, and yes, there are specific hats for everybody for spring training. They're not good either. So when you finally get to see the baseball team play, they're not going to look good, in my mind. I don't know if they'll play good. That's half of it. Look good, play good, I just thought was the deal. So, but yes, it's NDSU night. We had Dave St. Peter come on and say the South Dakota State night has been the biggest alumni turnout they've had. NDSU's been really good, and UND has that as well. So that'll be happening again this year. Let's just recap things real quick. Our poll question for today, of course, centered on the 3-class proposal, and the question simple was, what was your biggest concern with the 3-class basketball plan? Tournaments at the same time, way out in front, 58% leading the way. Competitive balance after that, and didn't need it, comes in third. I agree on the tournaments at the same time. That is a concern for me as well. I'll be interested to see how this plays out. We've got a year to go. I think once more people get more information, especially about television, streaming of it, that will be different. I'm not going to get into how people stream stuff. I don't know their business models. I know ours. And we have had it since we got the state tournaments, that we've had from the Dakota Bowl to hockey to basketball. It's with Bison football, same thing. Stuff's not free. I'm not asking you to go do your job for free. That's not how it works. All right? I don't know other business models. I know ours. Let's get you ready for what to watch before we get out of here on this Thursday. Great sports day on tap. The Minnesota Wild can't score any goals and are losing games left and right. They lost again last night in Dallas. They're back home tonight, take on the Golden Knights, 7 o'clock on Bally Sports North. We mentioned we've got Omaha, North Dakota State coming up tonight. Big men's basketball game, 7 o'clock on WDAY Extra. The Bison men start the night in a tie for 6th. South Dakota in 7th, then Omaha after that. So we'll see how the Bison perform. They've lost 4 of their last 5, as you can see where they're at in the Summit League standings, with Oral Roberts way out in front. Then the Jacks, as we mentioned, it's USD plays at SDSU The Jacks can do the Bison a solid by beating them to give them a little bit of breathing room. But remember, top six, stay out of the play-in. Also, we've got the Waste Management Open beginning 2:30 on Golf Channel. Tom Hoagie will tee off at 2:15. So he'll play that 16th hole right about 4 o'clock today. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Hope you all enjoyed it. We'll be back tomorrow to redo it all over again on Hot Mic on WDAY Extra and InForum.com. Have a great Thursday, everybody.